My name is David Morrison. I'm 29 years old. You're embarrassing us, David. Not everything is about you. Those words came from my father's mouth on a Tuesday evening in March, standing in the living room of the house I grew up in, while my mother sat on the couch nodding in agreement, and my younger brother, Ryan, smirked from the armchair in the corner. I had just told them I'd made partner at Henderson and Klein, one of the most prestigious corporate law firms in Boston, the youngest partner in the firm's 52-year history. I was holding the official notification letter in my hand, embossed letterhead, my name printed in bold at the top. Partner. David Morrison, partner. The culmination of 7 years of 80-hour work weeks, sleepless nights, sacrificed relationships, and relentless determination. And my father's response was that I was embarrassing them. That was March 15th. Exactly 3 weeks and 2 days later, my phone would ring at 1:47 in the morning. Ryan's name on the screen. He'd be calling from the Suffolk County Jail, arrested for embezzlement and wire fraud, asking me to post bail and hire him a lawyer because I was the only person in the family who could afford it. 6 months after that phone call, I would sit in my apartment at 3 a.m., surrounded by bank statements, financial records, and documents I'd subpoenaed through legal channels, discovering that the embezzlement didn't start with Ryan. It started 8 years earlier, in my parents' basement, in a filing cabinet I was never allowed to open as a child, with my father's handwriting on withdrawal slips and my mother's signature on transfer forms. 1 year from that March evening, I would stand in a federal courtroom, watching my father led away in handcuffs while my mother sobbed in the gallery and Ryan refused to make eye contact with me. And 436 days after that, I would be sitting in my new apartment on Beacon Hill, financially independent, professionally successful, completely estranged from every member of my biological family, and for the first time in my entire life, actually at peace. But before I tell you about the courtroom, before I show you the financial documents that made my hands shake so badly I had to set them down, before I explain why my mother sent me a letter calling me a traitor and why I haven't spoken to Ryan in over a year, let me take you back. Back to a 4-bedroom colonial house in Brookline, Massachusetts. Back to a childhood where I learned that achievement without the right audience is just noise. Back to the exact moment I realized that some families don't celebrate your success. They resent it, they punish it, and they will do everything in their power to make sure you understand that your accomplishments make them uncomfortable. I need you to understand something critical before we go any further into this story. This isn't just a tale about a dysfunctional family. Every family has dysfunction. Every family has problems, arguments, moments of tension. This is something different. This is a story about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, who are supposed to be your biggest cheerleaders, only love the version of you that serves their needs, that makes them look good, that doesn't threaten their carefully constructed narrative about who they are and what their family represents. This is about discovering that your entire childhood, every birthday, every holiday, every achievement you worked for, was built on a foundation of lies so deep and so systematic that when you finally uncover them, you question whether anything about your family was ever real. This is about the moment you realize you have to choose between protecting the people who raised you and protecting yourself, between maintaining a relationship that's slowly destroying you and walking away from the only family you've ever known. If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your own family, if you've ever achieved something incredible and been met with silence, dismissal, or outright criticism instead of celebration, if you've ever wondered why your parents seem to love your sibling effortlessly while you have to fight for every scrap of attention and approval, stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a story that thousands, maybe millions, of people are living right now, in silence, in shame, thinking they're the problem, thinking if they just achieved a little more, tried a little harder, made themselves a little smaller or a little bigger or a little different, their parents would finally see them. You're not the problem. I spent 29 years thinking I was the problem. I was wrong. And by the time you finish reading this, you'll understand exactly what I mean, and maybe, just maybe, you'll recognize your own story in mine. Growing up in Brookline, Massachusetts, we looked like every other upper-middle-class family on our tree-lined street. Big house, 2-car garage, manicured lawn that my father obsessed over every weekend. My father, Richard Morrison, was a senior accountant at a regional firm in downtown Boston. 51 years old when I was born, which meant he was already set in his ways, already had fixed ideas about how the world worked and how children should behave. He was the kind of man who wore a suit and tie even on Saturdays, who kept spreadsheets for household expenses, who corrected your grammar at the dinner table, and kept a running tally of every dollar he'd ever spent on his children's education, activities, and upbringing. He'd mention it sometimes, casually, over dinner. Do you know how much your piano lessons cost? $75 a week. That's $300 a month. I could retire 2 years earlier if I wasn't paying for things you don't even appreciate. My mother, Linda Morrison, worked part-time as an administrative assistant at a local medical practice. She was the classic enabler, the peacekeeper, the woman who smoothed over every conflict, apologized for things that weren't her fault, and spent her entire life making herself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. She had opinions, I'm sure, but I rarely heard them, especially not when my father was in the room. She kept the house immaculate. She kept up appearances. She smiled at the neighbors, volunteered at the church, brought casseroles to people when they were sick, and never, ever contradicted my father in public or in private. She was a ghost in her own life, and I didn't understand that until I was much older. Ryan was born 4 years after me. From the moment he could walk, he commanded attention. Charismatic, outgoing, athletic, the kind of child who made friends with strangers at the grocery store and had teachers calling him a delight despite mediocre grades and constant behavioral issues. He played hockey. He was popular. He had my mother's easy charm and my father's confidence, and people just gravitated toward him. He'd walk into a room, and people would light up. I'd walk into the same room, and people would nod politely and go back to their conversations. I was different. Quiet, bookish, serious. The kid who read during recess, who finished homework 3 days before it was due, who asked the teacher for extra credit assignments because the regular work wasn't challenging enough. I got straight A's from first grade onward. I won the science fair 3 years in a row. I was accepted into the National Honor Society as a freshman in high school, which was almost unheard of. I thought achievement was the currency of love. I thought if I was smart enough, accomplished enough, perfect enough, my parents would look at me the way they looked at Ryan. I was wrong. There's one memory that encapsulates everything, and I want you to really picture this because it set the tone for the next 2 decades of my life. I was 14 years old. I had just received my SAT scores. 1490 out of 1520. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Patricia Henshaw, called me into her office specifically to tell me that this was an exceptional score, that I was in the 99th percentile nationally, that I was on track for National Merit Scholarship consideration, that any university in the country would be lucky to have me. She printed out my score report on official school letterhead, signed it, and handed it to me with both hands like it was a diploma. I drove home that afternoon with the score report on the passenger seat. I kept glancing at it at red lights. 99th percentile. Exceptional. National merit. I felt something I rarely felt in that house. Pride. Not the quiet, private pride of knowing you did well. The kind of pride that makes you want to share it, to celebrate it with the people who are supposed to love you most. I walked through the front door at 3:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because the kitchen clock was directly in my line of sight. My mother was unloading the dishwasher. The radio was playing softly in the background, some classical station she always had on. I set my backpack down. I pulled out the score report, still crisp and clean, and I placed it on the kitchen table right in the center, impossible to miss. "Mom," I said, "I got my SAT scores back today." She glanced over her shoulder. "Oh, that's nice, honey. How'd you do?" 1490 out of 1520. Mrs. Henshaw said it's 99th percentile. She said I might qualify for national merit. My mother smiled. A quick, distracted smile. "That's wonderful, David. I'm proud of you." Then she turned back to the dishwasher and continued putting away plates. I stood there for a moment, waiting for more. Waiting for her to ask to see the report, to read Mrs. Henshaw's note, to call my father, to suggest we celebrate. Nothing. I sat down at the table. I did my homework. At 5:52 p.m., my father came home. He walked through the kitchen, set his briefcase on the counter, picked up the mail from the table. He set the mail directly on top of my SAT score report. Didn't even glance at it. "What's for dinner?" he asked my mother. "Meatloaf," she said. "Ryan has hockey practice at 7. Can you pick him up after?" "Sure." My father loosened his tie, walked into the living room, turned on the news. I sat at that kitchen table, staring at the mail stacked on top of my score report, and something inside me went very quiet. Not sad, not angry, just quiet, like a light switching off. At 6:15 p.m., my mother called us for dinner. We sat at the table, the four of us. Ryan talked about hockey practice, about a goal he almost scored, about the coach saying he had potential for varsity next year. My father leaned forward, interested, engaged. That's great, Ryan. You keep working hard. You could get a college scholarship. Ryan shrugged. Maybe. I don't know if I'm that good. You're that good, my mother said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. You're so talented, sweetheart. I ate my meatloaf. I didn't say anything. After dinner, I cleared the table. I picked up my SAT score report from under the pile of mail. The corner was bent now, a coffee ring staining the edge. I took it upstairs to my room, put it in a folder, and slid the folder into my desk drawer. I never mentioned my SAT scores again, and my parents never asked. That was the moment I learned the fundamental truth of my family. Ryan's mediocrity was celebrated. My excellence was invisible, and no amount of achievement would ever change that equation. High school became a 4-year exercise in perfection pursued in isolation. I took every AP class my school offered, 7 in total. I scored 5s on all 7 exams. I tutored underclassmen in math and science after school. I was president of the debate team, editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, captain of the academic decathlon team. I volunteered at a homeless shelter every Saturday morning. I had a 4.0 GPA, unweighted, a 4.7 weighted. I applied to 17 universities. 17. I spent 6 months on my applications, writing and rewriting essays, getting feedback from teachers, crafting every sentence until it was perfect. In April of my senior year, the acceptance letters started arriving. Brown University, full academic scholarship. Columbia University, merit scholarship covering 75% of tuition. Northwestern, Duke, University of Chicago, all with scholarship offers. All with letters that used words like exceptional, outstanding, exactly the kind of student we seek. On April 10th, I received my top choice. Harvard University, full academic scholarship. Room, board, tuition, everything. I opened the letter in the mailbox at the end of our driveway. Thick envelope, crimson seal, the word congratulations in bold at the top. I stood there on the sidewalk, holding that letter, and I felt something crack open in my chest. Not happiness exactly. Something bigger. Validation. Proof. Evidence that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining my own worth, that I was actually as smart and capable as I believed myself to be. I walked into the house. My parents were in the living room. My father was reading the newspaper. My mother was folding laundry. Ryan was upstairs in his room, music blasting loud enough to rattle the floorboards. I got into Harvard, I said. No preamble. Just the fact. My mother looked up. She smiled. Oh, David, that's wonderful. My father folded his newspaper, set it on the coffee table. Harvard, huh? Full scholarship, I added. Everything covered. He nodded slowly. That'll save us money. Good. That was it. That was the entire response. My mother went back to folding laundry. My father picked up his newspaper again. I stood in the doorway of the living room, holding my Harvard acceptance letter, waiting for something more. Waiting for them to ask to see the letter, to call relatives, to take a photo, to suggest we go out to dinner to celebrate. Nothing. The silence stretched out. I could hear Ryan's music upstairs. I could hear the washing machine running in the basement. I could hear my own breathing. I'm going to accept it, I said. My father glanced at me over his newspaper. Makes sense. It's a good school. Then he went back to reading. I went upstairs to my room. I sat on my bed. I read the acceptance letter 3 more times. Then I put it in the same desk drawer as my SAT scores, and I made a decision. I was going to stop waiting for them to see me. I was going to stop expecting them to care. And I was going to build a life so far removed from this house that their indifference couldn't touch me anymore. 2 weeks later, Ryan came home with news. He'd been accepted to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Not a bad school. Perfectly respectable. But not Harvard. Not even close. That night, my father opened a bottle of champagne. My mother made Ryan's favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread. They invited 3 sets of neighbors over. They bought a cake from the bakery downtown, chocolate with "Congratulations, Ryan," written in blue frosting. They took photos. They toasted. They called relatives. My father gave a speech about how proud he was, about how Ryan had worked so hard, about how this was just the beginning of an incredible future. I sat at that dinner table, in the same house where my Harvard acceptance had been met with "that'll save us money," and I watched my parents celebrate my brother's admission to a state school like he'd won the Nobel Prize. I didn't say anything. I ate my lasagna. I smiled when people looked at me. I said, "Congratulations, Ryan," when prompted. And inside, something fundamental shifted. I understood, finally and completely, that this wasn't about achievement. This wasn't about grades or test scores or accomplishments. This was about the simple fact that my parents had chosen Ryan. They had chosen him before I was even old enough to understand what that meant. And nothing I did, no matter how exceptional, no matter how objectively impressive, would ever change that choice. That was the last time I expected anything from them. That summer, I worked 2 jobs. I bagged groceries at the local supermarket. I tutored wealthy kids whose parents paid me $40 an hour to help them pass remedial algebra. I saved every penny. In August, I packed everything I owned into my 2003 Honda Civic, and I drove to Cambridge, Massachusetts. I didn't ask my parents to help me move. I didn't ask them to drive me to campus. I didn't ask for anything. Harvard was freedom. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence, who celebrated achievement, who understood that hard work deserved recognition. I thrived. I double majored in economics and political science. I graduated summa cum laude. I was accepted into Harvard Law School with a merit scholarship that covered 60% of tuition. I edited the Harvard Law Review. I clerked for a federal appellate judge my second summer. I graduated in the top 5% of my class. I passed the Massachusetts bar exam on my first attempt with a score that put me in the 96th percentile. At 25 years old, I received offers from 6 major law firms. I chose Henderson and Klein. Starting salary, $205,000 a year, not including bonus. I called my parents the day I got the offer. My mother answered on the 3rd ring. "David, hi sweetheart. How are you?" "I'm good, Mom. I have some news. I just got a job offer from Henderson and Klein. It's one of the best corporate law firms in Boston." "Oh, that's nice, honey. Congratulations. The salary is $205,000 a year." A pause. "Well, that's very good, David. Your father will be pleased you're earning a good living." "Is he there? Can I talk to him?" "He's watching a game. I'll tell him you called." "Mom, I want to—" "Oh, David, I have to go. Ryan's here for dinner. He just got a promotion at work. We're celebrating. I'll talk to you later, okay? Love you, bye." She hung up. I sat in my small apartment near campus, phone in my hand, staring at the wall. Ryan's promotion. He was working as an assistant manager at a car dealership. His promotion was to senior assistant manager, a raise of probably $3,000 a year. And my parents were throwing him a dinner. I had just been offered $205,000 a year at one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, and my mother couldn't stay on the phone for 5 minutes. I set my phone down. I looked at the offer letter on my desk, and I felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, nothing. Just that same quiet I'd felt at 14, sitting at the kitchen table with my SAT scores hidden under a pile of mail. That's when I stopped calling. I didn't cut them off. Not officially. I just stopped reaching out. I sent a text on birthdays and holidays. I responded when they called, which wasn't often. But I stopped volunteering information about my life. I stopped expecting them to care. I threw myself into work the way some people throw themselves into religion. 80-hour weeks were normal. 100-hour weeks during major cases. I took every assignment that came my way. I worked on mergers and acquisitions, corporate restructurings, securities offerings. I billed more hours than any other associate in my class. I won cases that senior partners said were unwinnable. I made senior associate in 18 months. I made junior partner at 28. And at 29, the managing partners called me into the corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. A conference table that could seat 20 people. 7 senior partners sitting in leather chairs that probably cost more than my first car. "David," the managing partner, Thomas Henderson, said, "we'd like to offer you a full equity partnership. You'd be the youngest partner in the firm's 52-year history. Congratulations." I signed the partnership agreement that afternoon. Equity stake. Profit participation. 7-figure compensation package. My name would go on the letterhead. My name would be on the door. David Morrison, partner, Henderson and Klein. That evening, I sat in my office, looking out at the city lights, and I thought about telling my parents. I thought about calling them, about driving to Brookline, about walking into that house and finally having something so undeniably impressive that they'd have to acknowledge it. I imagined my father's face. I imagined him having to admit that his overlooked son, the one he'd never celebrated, the one whose Harvard acceptance he'd met with "that'll save us money," had achieved something objectively remarkable. I wanted that moment. I craved it in a way that surprised me. So I decided to do it. In person. Face to face. I wanted to see their reaction. I drove to Brookline that Saturday morning. I didn't call ahead. I used the key I'd had since childhood, the one I'd never returned. I walked into the house at 10:15 a.m. My parents were in the living room. Coffee cups on the side tables. Morning news playing softly on the television. And Ryan was there, sitting on the couch in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, scrolling through his phone. "David," my mother said, looking up. "What a surprise. What are you doing here? I wanted to tell you something in person." My father muted the television. He looked at me over his reading glasses. "I made partner at Henderson and Klein. I'm the youngest partner in the firm's history." Silence. Complete, total silence. My mother blinked. Oh, David, that's wonderful." Her voice was flat, automatic, like she was reading from a script. My father nodded once. "Good for you." Ryan looked up from his phone. He laughed. Not a happy laugh. A short, sharp, bitter sound. "Of course you did." I looked at him. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you always have to be the best at everything. You always have to show off." "I'm not showing off. I'm sharing news with my family." "Right? Sure." Ryan went back to his phone. I looked at my father. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not pride. Not happiness. Something closer to discomfort. "David," he said slowly, "your brother is going through a difficult time right now. He's struggling financially. He's trying to build a career. And you come in here flaunting your success like it's some kind of competition. It's selfish." I stared at him. "Selfish?" "Yes, selfish. You've always been like this. Always needing validation. Always making everything about you. It's embarrassing." There it was. The word that would echo in my mind for months. Embarrassing. I had just made partner at one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. At 29. And my father's response was that I was embarrassing him. "How is sharing good news embarrassing?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Because it's not about the news, David. It's about you needing everyone to tell you how special you are. We're proud of you, okay? We're always proud of you. But you don't need a parade every time you get a promotion." I've never gotten a parade. Not once. Not when I got into Harvard. Not when I graduated summa cum laude. Not when I got into law school. Not when I got this job. Not ever. "Because you don't need it," my mother said quietly. "You've always been fine on your own. You're strong, David. You don't need us the way Ryan does." And there it was. The truth, spoken out loud for the first time in my entire life. I don't need them the way Ryan does. Therefore, they don't need to celebrate me. Therefore, my achievements are embarrassing rather than impressive. The logic was insane. Completely insane. But it was their logic, and nothing I said would change it. I looked at Ryan. He was still scrolling through his phone, smirking slightly, enjoying this. I looked at my mother. She was staring at her coffee cup, unwilling to meet my eyes. I looked at my father. He was watching me with that same uncomfortable expression, like I was a problem he needed to solve, an inconvenience he needed to manage. And I made a decision. I was done. I walked out of that house. I got in my car. I drove back to Boston. And I made myself a promise. I would never again give these people the power to make me feel small. I would never again seek their approval, their validation, their pride. I would never again walk into that house expecting them to see me. Because they had made their choice. 29 years ago, they had chosen Ryan. And they would choose him every single day for the rest of their lives. That was their decision. And I couldn't change it. But I could change my response to it. 3 weeks and 2 days later, my phone rang at 1:47 in the morning. I was asleep. The sound jolted me awake. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, squinting at the screen in the dark. Ryan. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken since that Saturday morning. But something, instinct maybe, made me swipe to accept. "What?" My voice was rough with sleep. "David." Ryan's voice was shaking. High-pitched. Panicked. "David, I need help. I'm at the Suffolk County Jail. I've been arrested." I sat up, turned on the lamp. Arrested for what? Embezzlement. Wire fraud. They're saying I stole money from the dealership. "David, I didn't do it. I swear to God, I didn't do it." You have to believe me. You have to help me. My mind was already working, running through criminal procedure, bail requirements, arraignment timelines. How much are they saying you took? Silence. Long, heavy silence. Ryan. How much? $387,000. I closed my eyes. $387,000. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was systematic, deliberate theft over an extended period. David, please. You're a lawyer. You can fix this. You can make this go away. Please. I'm begging you. I looked at the clock. 1:53 a.m. Where are you exactly? Suffolk County Jail. They're holding me until arraignment. Bail hearing is Monday morning. David, I can't stay in here. Please. I didn't want to help him. I need to be absolutely clear about that. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to hang up, to turn off my phone, to go back to sleep and let Ryan deal with the consequences of his own actions for once in his life. He had spent 29 years being coddled, protected, celebrated for mediocrity, while I was dismissed for excellence. He had smirked when my father called me embarrassing. He had laughed when I told him I made partner. And now he wanted me to save him. But he was my brother. Despite everything, despite the years of being overlooked, despite the favoritism, despite the casual cruelty, he was my brother. And I couldn't walk away. Not yet. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't say anything to anyone until I get there. Nothing. Do you understand? Yes. Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I hung up. I got dressed. I drove to the Suffolk County Jail in the middle of the night, and I tried not to think about the fact that I was doing for Ryan what he would never do for me. The Suffolk County Jail smells like bleach and desperation. Fluorescent lights that make everyone look sick. Gray walls. Metal detectors. Guards who look like they've seen every type of human failure and stopped being surprised years ago. I showed my bar card. I filled out the visitor forms. I waited in a room with plastic chairs and a vending machine that only took exact change. At 2:47 a.m., they brought Ryan out. He looked terrible. His face was pale, eyes red, hair sticking up in every direction. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit that was too big for him. He sat down across from me at the metal table. We were separated by a plexiglass partition. He picked up the phone on his side. I picked up mine. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice cracked. "Tell me exactly what happened. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out." He took a shaky breath. "I've been working at Prestige Auto Sales for 2 years. I'm senior assistant manager. About 18 months ago, I started having money problems. Credit card debt, car payment, rent. I couldn't keep up. So I borrowed some money from the dealership. Borrowed. Okay, I took some money. Just a little at first. 1,000 here, 2,000 there. I was going to pay it back. I swear I was going to pay it back. How did you take it? I created fake invoices. Service work that never happened. Parts that were never ordered. I'd process the invoices, and the money would go into an account I set up. What kind of account? A shell company. Northeast Automotive Consulting. I set it up online. Fake EIN, fake business license. The dealership would cut checks to the company, and I'd deposit them into an account only I had access to. I closed my eyes. This wasn't amateur theft. This was sophisticated financial fraud. How much total? I don't know exactly. Maybe 300,000. Maybe more. The police said 387,000. Ryan's face crumbled. He started crying. I didn't mean for it to get that big. It kept growing. I kept thinking I'd stop. I'd pay it back. But then I'd need more. And How did they catch you? Internal audit. The new finance manager noticed discrepancies. She started pulling records. She found the invoices. She traced the payments. She called the police. I sat back in my chair. "Ryan, you're going to be charged with multiple felonies. Embezzlement, wire fraud, probably mail fraud, if any of this involved postal service. You're looking at serious prison time." No. David, you have to help me. You have to fix this. You're a lawyer. You can. I'm a corporate lawyer. I don't practice criminal law. But you know people. You have connections. Please. I can't go to prison. Please. I looked at my younger brother, crying in an orange jumpsuit at 3 in the morning, and I felt something complicated. Not sympathy exactly. Something closer to pity. "I'll make some calls," I said. "I'll find you a criminal defense attorney. A good one. But Ryan, you need to understand something. The evidence is going to be overwhelming. Bank records, invoices, paper trail. The best we can hope for is a plea deal that reduces your sentence. No, no, I'm not pleading guilty. I didn't do this. Ryan, I'm innocent, David. Someone set me up. Someone at the dealership. Someone who wanted my position. Someone, stop. I kept my voice level. Firm. Don't lie to me. Not right now. You just told me you created fake invoices and a shell company. That's not being set up. That's committing a crime. He stared at me through the plexiglass. Are you going to help me or not? I'm going to help you. But I'm not going to help you lie. Not to me. Not to your attorney. Not to the court. The only way through this is to tell the truth and hope for leniency. Ryan's expression hardened. You know what? Forget it. I'll call Dad. He'll help me. He actually cares about me. He slammed the phone down, stood up, walked back toward the door where the guard was waiting. I sat there for a moment, holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. Then I hung up. I drove home at 3:30 a.m. I didn't sleep. At 7 a.m., I called Mitchell Rosen, one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Boston. I explained the situation. He agreed to take the case. At 9 a.m., I called my father. He answered on the second ring. David, Ryan called me last night. From jail. Did he call you? A pause. Yes. He called us this morning. We're going to the bail hearing. I hired him an attorney. Mitchell Rosen. He's one of the best. We'll pay you back for the legal fees. I'm not worried about the legal fees, Dad. I'm worried about Ryan. He's in serious trouble. I know that, David. Your mother and I are handling it. Are you going to post bail? Of course we're posting bail. He's our son. Of course. Of course they were posting bail. Of course they were handling it. Ryan commits a felony, steals nearly $400,000, and they immediately mobilize to protect him. The bail is probably going to be substantial. Probably $200,000 or more. We'll figure it out. Do you have that kind of money available? We'll take out a loan against the house if we need to. I sat in my office, phone pressed to my ear, and I felt something dark unfold in my chest. Dad, you didn't co-sign my student loans. You told me if I wanted to go to Harvard, I had to figure out how to pay for it myself. But you're willing to take out a loan against your house for Ryan's bail? That's different, David. How is it different? Because you had scholarships. You didn't need our help. Ryan needs us now. I needed you then. This conversation is over. We'll handle Ryan's situation. Thank you for hiring the attorney. We'll take it from here. He hung up. I sat in my office for a long time after that call. The sun was coming up over Boston Harbor. The city was waking up. People were going to work, drinking coffee, living their normal lives. And I was sitting in a corner office at a prestigious law firm, trying to understand why my parents would move heaven and earth for my brother, who committed a felony, but couldn't be bothered to congratulate me for making partner. The bail hearing was Monday morning at 10 a.m. Suffolk County Superior Court. I didn't plan on going. This wasn't my case. Mitchell Rosen was handling it. I had work to do, cases to manage, clients to call. But at 9:30 a.m., I found myself putting on my suit jacket and walking out of the office. I drove to the courthouse. I sat in the back of the gallery. My parents were in the front row. My mother was wearing a navy blue dress, clutching a tissue. My father sat ramrod straight, jaw set, hands folded in his lap. Ryan was brought out in shackles. Orange jumpsuit. He looked even worse than he had 3 days ago. Mitchell Rosen argued for reasonable bail. The prosecutor argued that Ryan was a flight risk, that he had access to stolen funds, that the amount of money involved and the sophistication of the scheme indicated he was a danger to the community. The judge set bail at $350,000. My mother gasped. My father didn't react. Ryan looked at them, his face desperate. Mitchell approached my father after the hearing. They spoke in low voices. I stayed in the back, watching. I saw my father nod. I saw him pull out his phone. I left before they could see me. 2 days later, Ryan was released on bail. My father had taken out a home equity line of credit for $350,000. Put the house up as collateral. They'd owned that house for 32 years. They'd raised 2 children there. They'd nearly paid off the mortgage. And now they'd leveraged everything for Ryan's bail. I found out from my mother. She called me that evening. Ryan's home, she said. That's good, Mom. Your father and I wanted to thank you for hiring Mitchell. He's very good. He is. We took out a loan against the house for the bail. I know. It's a lot of money, David. I waited. I knew what was coming. We were wondering if you might be able to help us with some of the monthly payments. Just until this gets sorted out. You're making such good money now, and no. Silence. David, we're your parents. We're asking for help. And I'm saying no. You chose to post that bail. You chose to take out that loan. That's your decision. I'm not paying for it. How can you be so cruel? Your brother is in trouble. My brother committed a crime. Multiple crimes. And you're enabling him. Again, like you've enabled him his entire life. We're supporting our son. You've always supported him, Mom. You've never supported me. Not once. Not when I got into Harvard. Not when I graduated law school. Not when I made partner. But Ryan steals $400,000, and suddenly you'll risk your house to bail him out. That's not fair, David. You're right. It's not fair. It's never been fair. And I'm done pretending it doesn't bother me. I hung up. She called back. I didn't answer. She called again. I turned off my phone. That was the beginning of the end. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Mitchell was negotiating with the prosecutor's office, trying to work out a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, invoices, email trails, security footage of Ryan at the bank depositing checks. The prosecutor was offering 7 years with possibility of parole after 4. Mitchell was trying to get it down to 5 with parole after 3. Ryan was refusing to take any deal. He was convinced he could win at trial, convinced a jury would believe him, convinced that somehow this would all just go away. My parents were supporting his delusion. I knew this because my mother called me every few days with updates. Ryan was doing well. Ryan was staying positive. Ryan was confident. Ryan. I stopped answering her calls. Then I started getting calls from my father. I didn't answer those either. Then I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. My mother's handwriting. Dear David, I don't understand why you're shutting us out. We're your family. We love you. Your brother is going through the hardest time of his life, and we need to support him. I wish you could find it in your heart to be there for him, to help him through this. We raised you better than this. Please call me. Love, Mom. I read that letter 3 times. We raised you better than this. She had the audacity to tell me they raised me better than this. They raised me to be invisible. They raised me to achieve in silence. They raised me to understand that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. And now she was telling me they raised me better than refusing to enable my criminal brother. I didn't respond to the letter. 3 months into Ryan's pretrial period, I got a call from Mitchell Rosen. David, we need to talk. Can you come to my office? I met him the next day. He had files spread across his desk. Bank records. Financial documents. We've been doing discovery, Mitchell said. Going through all the financial records the prosecution turned over. And we found something interesting. He slid a document across the desk. A bank statement. For an account I didn't recognize. This is an account under your father's name. Richard Morrison. Do you recognize it? I looked at the account number. No. Look at the transaction history. I scanned down the page. Deposits. Multiple deposits. Ranging from $5,000 to $20,000. Dates going back 3 years. These deposits, Mitchell said, pointing. They correspond with Ryan's withdrawals from the shell company account. He wasn't keeping all the money. He was transferring a significant portion to your father. I stared at the statement. How much total? $162,000 over 3 years. The room felt like it was tilting. My father was receiving stolen money. It appears that way. The question is, did he know it was stolen? I looked up at Mitchell. Yes, he knew. How can you be sure? Because my father is a CPA. He's worked in accounting for 35 years. He knows how money works. If his unemployed son is suddenly transferring $20,000 into his account, he knows something's wrong. Mitchell nodded slowly. The prosecutor is going to want to question your father. If he knew the money was stolen, he's an accessory after the fact. That's a federal crime. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you're willing to testify about your father's financial sophistication, his knowledge of accounting practices, his relationship with Ryan. It would help establish that he knew or should have known the money was stolen. I sat back in my chair. Mitchell was asking me to testify against my own father. I need to think about it. I understand. But David, you should know that if your father did knowingly accept stolen funds, and if we can prove it, the prosecutor might offer Ryan a better deal in exchange for testifying against his father. It could reduce Ryan's sentence significantly. You want Ryan to testify against our father. I want to explore every option that benefits my client. Ryan. I stood up. I'll think about it. I drove back to my office. I sat at my desk. I looked out at Boston Harbor. And I started doing something I shouldn't have done. I started digging. I'm a corporate lawyer. I know how to trace financial transactions. I know how to pull public records. I know how to find information that people think is hidden. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked late every night. Not on my cases. On this. I pulled my father's tax returns. Public record for certain years due to his business filings. I pulled property records. I pulled credit reports on my parents using some legally gray methods that I'm not proud of. And I found something that made my hands shake so badly I had to set down the papers and walk away from my desk. My father had opened a series of accounts over the past 8 years. Money market accounts, investment accounts, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. The total amount in those accounts, $847,000. $847,000. My father was a senior accountant. My mother worked part-time. Their combined annual income was maybe $120,000. There was no legitimate way they'd accumulated nearly $1 million in investment accounts. I pulled Ryan's shell company bank records, the ones that were part of the discovery. I cross-referenced them with my father's deposits. And I found it. The pattern. For 8 years, long before Ryan started stealing from the dealership, someone had been making deposits into those accounts. Small amounts. $5,000 here. $10,000 there. Always under the reporting threshold. Always structured to avoid detection. I ran the dates against my father's employment records. They corresponded with periods when he was handling accounts for his firm's clients. He had been embezzling for 8 years, and Ryan had learned from him. This wasn't Ryan going rogue. This was Ryan following in his father's footsteps. I sat in my apartment at 2 a.m., surrounded by bank statements and financial records, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Not anger, not even betrayal. Something colder. Clarity. My father had been a criminal for 8 years, stealing from his firm, from clients, hiding money in offshore accounts. And when Ryan started doing the same thing, my father didn't stop him. He helped him. He took the money. He participated. And when Ryan got caught, my father acted like a concerned parent, posted bail, hired a lawyer, played the role of the loving father supporting his troubled son. It was all a lie. The entire family was built on lies. The perfect house in Brookline. The successful accountant father. The supportive mother. The charming younger son. All of it was a carefully constructed facade hiding systematic theft, favoritism, and dysfunction. I made a decision that night. I called Mitchell Rosen at 8 a.m. the next morning. I'll testify, and I have information the prosecutor is going to want to see. The federal prosecutor's name was Jennifer Matthews. Late 30s. Harvard law grad. Reputation for being thorough, relentless, and absolutely unforgiving when it came to financial crimes. I met with her in her office at the U.S. Attorney's Building. Mitchell Rosen was with me. I brought copies of everything I'd found. Bank statements, tax returns, property records, account information. Jennifer spread them across her conference table. She studied them in silence for 15 minutes. Then she looked up at me. "Mr. Morrison, do you understand what you're showing me?" "Yes. Evidence that my father has been embezzling money for approximately 8 years. From his employer? From his employer and from clients whose accounts he managed. And you believe your brother learned this behavior from your father?" "I believe my brother was following a pattern he observed in our household." Jennifer sat back in her chair. "This changes everything. This isn't just Ryan embezzling from a car dealership. This is a family operation. If we can prove your father was the architect, that he taught your brother how to do this, we can bring charges against both of them." "What kind of charges?" "For your father, wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, tax evasion. We're talking 20 years, maybe more." "And Ryan?" "If Ryan cooperates, if he testifies against your father, we can reduce his sentence to 18 months. Maybe supervised probation if he pays full restitution." I looked at Mitchell. He was watching me carefully. "David," Jennifer said, "I need to be clear about what's going to happen if we pursue this. Your father will be arrested. He will be charged with multiple federal felonies. Your family will be destroyed. Your mother will likely lose her house. Your father will go to prison for a long time. And you will be the person who made that happen. I understand. Are you sure you want to do this?" I thought about the kitchen table, the SAT scores under the pile of mail. I thought about the Harvard acceptance letter met with "that'll save us money." I thought about making partner and being called embarrassing. I thought about 29 years of being invisible, dismissed, overlooked, told I was too much and not enough and selfish and seeking attention. I thought about my father leveraging his house for Ryan's bail, but refusing to co-sign my student loans. I thought about my mother telling me I was raised better than this while excusing Ryan's crimes. And I thought about the fact that my father had been stealing for 8 years, had taught my brother to steal, had participated in his crimes, and was now playing the victim while my entire family rallied around him. Yes, I said. I'm sure. The investigation took 3 months. Federal agents executed search warrants on my parents' house, my father's office, Ryan's apartment. They seized computers, files, financial records. They interviewed my father's colleagues, his clients, the partners at his firm. They traced every deposit, every transfer, every account. They built a case so airtight that my father's attorney recommended he take a plea deal on the first day they met. But my father refused. He was convinced he could fight this. He was convinced a jury would believe him. He was convinced, somehow, that he was the victim in all of this. Ryan was smarter, or more desperate. When his attorney explained that he could get 18 months instead of 7 years if he testified against our father, Ryan took the deal. He agreed to cooperate. He agreed to testify. He agreed to provide details about how our father had taught him to create shell companies, how to structure transactions, how to avoid detection. My mother called me when she found out. It was 11 p.m. I was working late at the office. I saw her name on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. How could you do this? Her voice was shaking. Raul, how could you do this to your own father? I didn't do anything to him, Mom. I showed evidence of his crimes to the authorities. He did this to himself. He's your father, David. He raised you. He fed you. He put a roof over your head, and you're sending him to prison. He committed crimes, multiple felonies. He stole money from his employer and his clients. He taught Ryan to do the same thing. He's not a victim. You're tearing this family apart. This family was torn apart a long time ago. You just didn't notice because I was the only one who was hurt by it. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 29 years of being invisible, Mom. 29 years of achieving things that should have made you proud, and you couldn't even pretend to care. But Ryan commits a felony, and suddenly you'll mortgage your house to bail him out. Don't talk to me about tearing this family apart. You did that. You and Dad. A long time ago. You're cruel, David. You've always been cruel. No, Mom. I've always been honest. You just can't tell the difference. She hung up. I sat in my office, phone in my hand, and I waited for guilt. Waited for regret. Waited for some indication that I'd made a mistake. Nothing came. Just that same quiet I'd felt at 14. The trial was set for October. Federal courthouse, downtown Boston. United States versus Richard Morrison. Multiple counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and tax evasion. I sat in the gallery on the first day. My mother was in the front row, wearing black like she was at a funeral. Ryan sat 2 rows behind her, flanked by his attorney and a federal agent. He was part of the prosecution's case now. He'd testify against our father in exchange for his reduced sentence. My father sat at the defense table in a gray suit. His attorney was beside him, whispering something. My father looked older than I'd ever seen him. His hair had gone completely gray. His face was drawn. He looked like a man who'd finally run out of options. The prosecution called me on the second day. I was sworn in. I sat in the witness box. Jennifer Matthews approached the podium. Mr. Morrison, can you describe your relationship with the defendant, Richard Morrison? He's my father. Can you describe the nature of that relationship? Distant. He was emotionally unavailable. He favored my younger brother. In what ways did he favor your younger brother? He celebrated my brother's achievements, no matter how minor. He dismissed mine, no matter how significant. When I was accepted to Harvard with a full scholarship, his response was that it would save him money. When my brother was accepted to a state school, my parents threw a party and invited the neighborhood. Objection, my father's attorney said. Relevance. I'm establishing the defendant's relationship with his children, Jennifer said. It goes to motive and pattern of behavior. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. Jennifer turned back to me. Mr. Morrison, are you familiar with your father's professional background? Yes. He's a certified public accountant. He's worked in accounting for 35 years. Would you describe him as financially sophisticated? Very. He managed investment accounts for high-net-worth clients. He understood tax law, banking regulations, and financial structures. In your professional opinion as a corporate attorney, if your father saw large cash deposits being made into his accounts from his son, would he have known to question the source of those funds? Absolutely. Any CPA would recognize unusual deposits as a red flag. Objection. Speculation. Mr. Morrison is qualified to testify as to standard practices in financial management, Jennifer said. Overruled. Jennifer walked back to her table. She picked up a document. Mr. Morrison, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 47. Can you identify this? I looked at it. It was a bank statement for one of my father's offshore accounts. This is a bank statement for an account in my father's name. How did you obtain this document? Through legal discovery and public records searches. And what does this statement show? It shows an account with a balance of $312,000 held in the Cayman Islands. The deposits correspond with the time period my father was managing client accounts at his firm. Is there any legitimate way your father could have accumulated this money on his declared income? No. His salary and my mother's combined income would not allow for this level of savings, especially given their expenses and mortgage. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Ryan testified. He described how our father had shown him how to create shell companies when he was in high school. How our father had explained that it was smart business to keep certain transactions off the books. How our father had accepted money from him for years, never questioning where it came from. My father's attorney tried to paint Ryan as a liar, a criminal trying to reduce his own sentence by implicating his father. But the bank records didn't lie. The paper trail was clear. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. They came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. My father stood when the verdict was read. He didn't react, didn't cry, didn't show any emotion. Just stood there, ramrod straight, the way he'd stood in our living room when he called me embarrassing. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. My mother stood up in the courtroom. She turned around. She looked directly at me. Her eyes were red. Her face was twisted with something between heartbreak and hatred. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I saw it in her eyes. I had killed her family. I had destroyed her husband. I had betrayed my own blood. She turned and walked out. Ryan left through a side door with his attorney. He didn't look at me. The courtroom emptied. I sat there alone. Just me and the court reporter packing up her equipment. I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Vindication. Satisfaction. But I didn't feel any of that. I felt tired. Just bone deep, soul-crushing tired. I went back to my office. I worked until midnight. I went home. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. David, it's Ryan. I closed my eyes. What do you want? I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I just... Stop. David, you're not sorry, Ryan. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your life didn't turn out the way you wanted. But you're not sorry for how you treated me. You're not sorry for the years of watching Mom and Dad celebrate you while ignoring me. You're not sorry for smirking when Dad called me embarrassing. You're just sorry that for once in your life, there are consequences you can't escape. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. Nothing about this family has ever been fair. But it's true. I'm your brother, David. And I'm the brother you never defended. Not once. Not when Dad called me embarrassing. Not when Mom dismissed my Harvard acceptance. Not when they threw you a party for getting into UMass and didn't even acknowledge when I made partner. You stood by and let them treat me like I was invisible because it benefited you. So don't call me now looking for absolution. Silence. Are we ever going to be okay? Ryan asked quietly. No, we're not. Because being okay would require you to acknowledge what happened. And you can't do that. You've never been able to do that. I'm acknowledging it right now. No, you're performing acknowledgement because you think that's what I want to hear. But you don't actually understand what you did. You don't understand what it's like to spend 29 years trying to earn love from people who've already decided you're not worth it. And I don't have the energy to teach you. I hung up. I blocked his number. I blocked my mother's number. I blocked my father's number. I changed my locks, even though none of them had keys. I just needed to feel secure. Sentencing was in November. Federal courthouse. Same courtroom. My father stood before the judge. His attorney made an impassioned plea for leniency. Talked about his age, his health, his years of service to his community. The judge listened. Then she spoke. Mr. Morrison, you violated the trust of your clients, your employer, and your family. You stole money systematically over 8 years. You taught your son to commit similar crimes. You showed no remorse and attempted to evade justice at every turn. The damage you've caused is immeasurable. I'm sentencing you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You'll pay full restitution to your victims, and you're permanently barred from working in any financial capacity. My father's face didn't change. My mother let out a sound like an animal in pain. The bailiff led my father away in handcuffs. My mother stood up. She turned around. She looked at me one last time, and she mouthed 3 words. "I hate you." Then she walked out. I sat in the gallery after everyone left. The courtroom was empty, quiet. I thought about what the judge had said. The damage you've caused is immeasurable. My father caused damage. Not me. He made the choices. He committed the crimes. He destroyed his family. I just refused to be destroyed with it. 3 months after the sentencing, I received a letter in the mail. Law firm letterhead. It was from my mother's attorney. She was suing me. Civil suit. Claiming that I had tortiously interfered with her family relationships, that I had caused her emotional distress, that I had destroyed her marriage and her financial security. The suit asked for $2.5 million in damages. I called my own attorney. We filed a motion to dismiss. The suit was frivolous. I had provided truthful testimony in a criminal case. I had done nothing wrong. The judge agreed. The suit was dismissed with prejudice. My mother filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. The house in Brookline was foreclosed. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of town she'd once called undesirable. Ryan served 18 months. He was released last spring. He's living with my mother now. I know this because Aunt Carol told me. Aunt Carol is my mother's sister. She's the only family member who still speaks to me. She calls every few months to give me updates. She doesn't judge. She just informs. "Your mother is bitter," Aunt Carol told me last time we spoke. "She blames you for everything." I know. Do you feel guilty? I thought about that question. No. I feel sad. But not guilty. There's a difference. Your father is appealing his sentence. It won't work. The evidence was overwhelming. Your mother thinks you did this for revenge. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because it was the truth. And because I was tired of protecting people who never protected me. Aunt Carol was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, David, I think you did the right thing. Your parents treated you terribly. You deserved better. Thank you. Your mother will never forgive you." I know. I'm okay with that. I'm 30 now. I live in a high-rise apartment on Beacon Hill. Floor-to-ceiling windows, view of the Charles River. I have a career I love. I'm on track to make equity partner by 32. I have colleagues who respect me, friends who value me, a life I built entirely on my own. I haven't spoken to my mother in 436 days. I haven't seen my father since the sentencing. He's in a federal prison in Pennsylvania. He'll be eligible for parole in 7 years. He's 78 years old. He'll probably die in prison. That thought should make me feel something. Guilt, maybe. Or sadness. But it doesn't. I feel nothing. Ryan works at a different car dealership now. I don't know if he's stealing again. I don't care. My mother is alone. Her husband is in prison. Her younger son is living with her because he can't afford his own place. Her older son won't speak to her. She lost her house, her savings, her social standing. Everything she valued is gone. That should make me feel something too. But it doesn't. They made their choices. I made mine. There's one person I do talk to. Professor Ellen Whitmore. She was my constitutional law professor at Harvard Law. The first person who ever told me I was brilliant and meant it. She wrote one of my recommendation letters for law school. She's 76 now, retired, living in Cambridge. We have coffee every few months. She asks how I'm doing. Really doing. Last time we met, I told her about the trial, the estrangement, the lawsuit, all of it. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "David, you did the right thing. You set a boundary. You told the truth. You protected yourself. That's not betrayal. That's self-preservation. My mother thinks I destroyed the family. Your father destroyed the family when he started stealing. Your mother destroyed it when she chose favoritism over fairness. You just refused to go down with the ship. That's different. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just kept quiet. Let Ryan take his plea deal. Let my father get away with it. Kept the family intact. Kept the family intact," Professor Whitmore repeated. "David, that family was never intact. It was a facade, a performance, and you were the only one paying the price for maintaining it. Walking away from a dysfunctional system isn't destroying it. It's refusing to be destroyed by it. I think about that conversation a lot. Refusing to be destroyed by it. That's what this whole story is about. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Not even justice, really. Self-preservation. Refusing to shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. Refusing to carry guilt for crimes you didn't commit. Refusing to participate in a family dynamic that requires you to be invisible in order to function. I didn't destroy my family. They destroyed themselves. I just refused to pretend otherwise. And I want you to understand something if you're reading this. If you're the overlooked child, the scapegoat, the one who's always wrong no matter what you do, the one who achieves and gets silence instead of celebration, the one who's told you're embarrassing when you succeed and selfish when you need support, you're not the problem. You've never been the problem. The problem is a family system that rewards dysfunction and punishes health. The problem is parents who see their children as extensions of themselves rather than as whole, separate people. The problem is favoritism so extreme it becomes abuse. And you are allowed to walk away from it. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to say, "This relationship is hurting me, and I'm not going to participate in it anymore." That's not betrayal. That's not cruelty. That's self-love. People will judge you. They'll say, "But they're your parents. You only get one family. You'll regret this when they're gone." Blood is thicker than water. Let them talk. They don't know your story. They didn't sit at your dinner table. They didn't watch their achievements get dismissed while their siblings' mediocrity got celebrated. They didn't spend 29 years trying to earn love that was never going to be given. They don't get a vote. Here's what I regret. I regret the years I wasted trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it. I regret the nights I spent wondering what was wrong with me, when the truth was something was wrong with them. I regret believing, even for a second, that I was the problem. I don't regret testifying. I don't regret walking away. I don't regret choosing myself. I started this story in my parents' living room, holding a partnership letter, being told I was embarrassing them. I'm ending it in my own apartment, in a life I built on my own terms, surrounded by people who actually see me. That's not a sad ending. That's victory. My name is David Morrison. I'm 30 years old. I'm a partner at one of the best law firms in Boston. I make $680,000 a year. I own my apartment. I have a career I love, a life I'm proud of, and a future that's entirely mine. My parents don't speak to me. My brother pretends I don't exist. And I've never been happier. Because I finally understand what took me 3 decades to learn. You can't earn love from people who've decided you're not worth it. But you can earn your own respect. You can build your own life. You can find your own people. And you can wake up every morning knowing that you chose yourself. That you set the boundary. That you told the truth. That you refused to participate in a system designed to keep you small. That's not betrayal. That's liberation. And it's the best thing I ever did. If this story resonated with you, if you've lived some version of it yourself, I want you to know something. You're not alone. There are thousands of us out there. The overlooked children. The scapegoats. The ones who succeeded in spite of our families instead of because of them. We're building lives. We're setting boundaries. We're choosing ourselves. And we're doing more than fine. We're thriving. Because we finally learned the most important lesson. The people who are supposed to love you should never make you feel invisible. And if they do, walking away isn't giving up. It's waking up. So here's my question for you. What boundary did you set that changed your life? What was the moment you finally chose yourself? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a community of people who refuse to stay small. Because that's how we heal. Not by staying silent. Not by pretending it didn't happen. But by speaking our truth and knowing we're not alone. You're not the problem. You never were. And you deserve better. Thank you for staying until the end. Now go build the life you deserve.